Hi and welcome back to our channel. We are the Candid Book Club. So my name is Oma, this is Tanya, Linda, Mimi and Jess. Today we will be discussing the wonderful Sweetness in the Skin by ISHI Robinson, specifically because it is Read Caribbean Month. And luckily for us, we got to book club this with ISHI in person. So we just thought it'd be a lovely one to chat to with you guys. No. So let's talk about Pumpkin to start off with. I think when we first meet her, she's supposed to be 13.
Yeah, she's young.
She's quite young. She's just in school. And as it mentions, she lives with 3 women. So you've got like the 3 generations: her grandmother, her mum, and her aunt, and then there's her all in one house. I don't even know how to talk about it, to be honest. How to start off? Like, there's a few bits sort of that you get in the blurb. So we'll start with her grandmother. She was, when she was younger, she used to work as a maid in a sort of affluent household. This book touches on a lot of topics, including colorism.
For sure.
So I think that was like quite a prominent feature in the story. And then from there,
I was gonna say, I think as well that it just starts to, like, just from that nucleus point alone, you can see the disparity that's within the household, and that's been set up by like the matriarch of it. And so Pumpkin comes into this scenario,
and she's Paulette's daughter.
Yeah, Pumpkin is Paulette's daughter. So she's very, naive and just still in the process of learning and understanding her history from her grandmother. And she comes into this hugely divided house that is so disparate in between these 2 sisters, and she's stuck basically between a rock and a hard place. I think I love that Sophie takes her under her wing and is very much like, I'm going to help you get out of here. But also that also came with conditions for Pumpkin.
Well, it was also a bit of an insult to Paulette. It was, so Paulette and Sophie had a very difficult relationship, not least because there was a difference in their treatment, because one was light-skinned and one was darker, but also because Sophie had the luxury or the privilege of ambition and was obsessed with this idea of going to Paris and taking Pumpkin and going to France and being French and having freedom,
getting out and
escaping. And I think it was a direct insult to Paulette. It was a direct slap in her face that, she can't look after her own daughter, she's not capable of it, but also you're not light-skinned enough to have this kind of ambition. So the dynamic between the 2 of them was very, very difficult, made more so when grandmother Cecile passes away really suddenly in the house, and that completely, it's almost like the boat lost its rudder, and that completely threw the dynamic in the house into complete disarray. Because it's such a strong matriarchal household that suddenly all falls apart when the eldest of them, the kind of top of the tree as it were, passes, and then it's suddenly like there's no one there as the buffer between Paulette and Sophie. Not that she was much of a buffer, but there's not that weighty presence there.
Because I think Paulette was a teenager when she has Pumpkin. So I think that really plays into it. But also Paulette's quite abusive towards Pumpkin, physically as well as verbally, and the grandma kind of has some sort of control over Paulette, or she kind of she can still sort of discipline her, so that sort of protected Pumpkin a bit.
And let's not forget the baby father.
Pumpkin's
that, what's his name?
Akil.
Honestly, waste of space, good for nothing, joke.
But
he's always nasty, and he comes in and out of their lives, but also takes the advantage after the grandma passes away, because he wasn't welcome at all. But when she passed away, they had a free yard basically, so he was there
somewhere free to live,
and he was so creepy. They don't go into detail, the author doesn't go into detail, but you just know that some of the scenarios infer some kind of very, very deviant behaviour.
And even he must have been older. I think in the first place. So the dynamic between him and Paulette is also really skewed,
toxic.
And
it's
she's
so toxic.
She's constantly wanting his affection and his attention, and he's just
she doesn't get it from anywhere else.
So dismissive.
I felt really bad for Paulette because
me too.
She's obviously neglected at home. She doesn't really get respect from her older sister either. Sophie's just focused on her own ambitions and studying and going to uni or whatever. She doesn't intervene or help out in like Paulette's treatment. Then she's obviously a teen mum and she doesn't really know what she's doing and she's kind of off the rails a bit. She's kind of like, you know, in and out of the house. She's chasing the affection of a man who doesn't really care about her.
Yeah.
He is a bit of a local bike, to be honest. Like, he's just shagging around town. And she's like, again, just chasing after him because she thinks that she's in love with him.
Yeah.
Or that's the only love she's really known. And it's sad because really she could have had that relationship with Pumpkin, but because Pumpkin's got a close relationship to Sophie, and she has that animosity towards Sophie, I think that naturally gets directed towards Pumpkin as well. And maybe it's also because Pumpkin is also light-skinned and attractive, and maybe she feels like...
I just don't think she can show love because she's never felt love.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, you know, she's a very, very complex and flawed character, as they all are.
Yeah.
Like, even Paulette, is that her name? No, Sophie. The, you know, the auntie that has these, like, desires and aspirations, and actually it's not even a dream, it's like a fixation on going to France. That in itself is a bit bizarre. It's a bit bizarre, and it was skewed, and actually, in the end, when Pumpkin does go to France, and she's like, auntie, this is not for me. You know...
But there's a real journey for Pumpkin. So like coming on to her, I think one of the bits for me that was really important in this story about Pumpkin's development was who she was outside of Sophie's shadow. So Sophie gets to go to France. She goes to Marseille, not Paris, but that's like the next best thing. And for a period of time after, like around the same time that Cecile died, Pumpkin has to figure out her own way in the world without Sophie directly there. But all she has is this fixation that her aunt had of, I've got to get to France, I've got to get these exams done, and I've got to get there. And I think for me, part of the best bit of this story was Pumpkin figuring out who she was on her own a little bit. And she showed herself to be a survivor, to be super entrepreneurial, very creative in her problem solving, to the point where she created this lovely community of support around her, which helped her in her hour of need. But actually, when she didn't have Sophie there, it was freeing for her in a way. Not because Sophie's ambition was bad for her, but it was overbearing.
What she wanted.
Yeah, I feel like Sophie made it out like
my dream is your dream.
Yeah, but also that she wouldn't survive without her. And then what Pumpkin realizes that actually when Sophie went, that she thrived and she could do everything that she wanted to. She didn't actually need Sophie there. Like the whole thing of her selling her cakes and stuff. Sophie didn't give her that idea. Like she came up with it. She ran. That was a business. For a 13-year-old to run that business on her own. Like obviously she got the help from, was it Lynette? Lynette and
her friend
Boots.
And Miss Keane.
Tamara's mom. Tamara's mom. So that they were all helping her, but she was the one who was running it. And like she was like her own, like she became her own person, and I like that as well. Like she wasn't.
Sophie does project onto her quite a lot. She's like, these are the friends you need to keep. This is the company you need to keep. You need to speak like this. Don't do this. You need to, do better in French so that you can obviously.
But she's young and she's impressionable, and she thinks that what her elder, person is saying that she's right, and then you see that through the friendships that she makes and the choices she makes with her friends, like at her school and later at the French school, and just all of that kind of drama that went down with those horrible girls. It was just really indicative of like how insecure at the very beginning Sophie was with making choices. I mean, Pumpkin was with the choices of friends she was making because she let Sophie dictate all of that for her.
But do you not think Sophie was doing that because she was like, this is how you get freedom?
Probably.
Like, so the intent is not a bad intent. She's only doing what society forces in a way for you to do.
What she thought she needed to do.
What she needed to do, and we already know that she's fixated on like passing for a white person,
and getting out,
getting out, and that can come across as cliche. I think that whole getting out, but I appreciated that this is real life. Like, there's still a lot of people that think that way.
And the ending was perfect in that sense. That sorry to skip forward a bit, but Pumpkin ends up where she knows she belongs and she feels comfortable, and that's home
with a network of people that actually aren't blood,
and she never really needed to get out to find her happiness. She found it within herself and within her community.
I think Sophie's intentions were good. Like obviously she wanted them to be in a better position, but I don't think she understood who Pumpkin was as a person herself.
No,
I think if she got
gave her the opportunity.
and I think if she got to understand Pumpkin, then she would have realised that her dream wasn't actually Pumpkin's dream, and that she just kind of fed it through, and that's why Pumpkin was like, "You're 13. She looked up to her auntie and was like, I want that too." But maybe if she had given her options or helped her in other ways, maybe even just like getting a better education and going to that other French school, that probably would have helped her a lot more than moving to France and whatever and stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if Sophie wasn't bad, is that I think she just wanted better for the both of them, but unfortunately,
she has like internalized a lot of prejudices. Like even when she moves to France and Pumpkin moves over with her, and she says to Pumpkin like, "Don't hang around with the African kid because we don't want people to think you're also African." Yeah, and it's like, why not? So even though she gets her dream of moving out and being abroad, she's still really like trapped.
But it is survival. It is just about survival and what she wants for her life.
She gets with a white guy, and even then she's still trying to be someone that she's not. So it's like she's never gonna escape.
But she realizes also that going to France is not like Emily in Paris. Like she is a foreigner. People will look at you like you're an outsider, and she realizes that. And then I think, she's trapped as well, because even Boots, who is he a colleague?
Yeah, he was sort of the love interest of Sophie's.
But they met through work.
They met
through work, and he's very confident. He's a good man. We like reading about him.
We love him.
He's a good man, very sure of himself, very secure, knows what he wants, and looks at her like, I was kind of interested in you. Yeah, you're cute, you're hot, we get on. But he knows that she's trapped. Like, he knows that she's just not confident or happy in herself. There's always something, and she's looking at him like,
it's interesting.
I can't get with you because you're not the level that I wanted, which is like some bouginess.
It's interesting that you say that, because then I think back to that point where they took Pumpkin to the sea. So there's a point in the book where that I think is really very, very important to make, that loads of kids in Jamaica, despite living on an island, have never actually seen the sea. And there's a point where Boots and Sophie, when they're pseudo dating, kind of not, they take Pumpkin to the beach, and they have a day there. They go and eat chicken at this like famous place, and she sees the sea, and she feels like Pumpkin feels so happy, but clearly that wasn't enough for Sophie, despite the fact that it was like a new scene. It was like, Boots was showing them like a new part of Jamaica and a new thing for them. It wasn't enough for Sophie to not want to stay.
And I think this is something that Pumpkin questions quite a lot in the book. It's like, why isn't this enough? Why am I not enough? Why are the friends that I want to keep not enough? Like, why can't we just be happy where we are? Like, why can't Sophie just be with Boots? They get along really well. He makes her so happy. I've never seen her smile the way that she does around him. Like, why can't she just accept that and just be happy and content with it? So I think it was really nice that Pumpkin has such a growth, because she manages to realize so much more still as a child compared to like someone who is an adult and still hasn't had that realization that I need to learn to accept who I am.
There are so many people like that you meet in adult life, that they're always chasing the next best thing. They feel like the grass is always greener on the other side. Like, they could have the best job, look the part, whatever, but it's never enough. And that's what I liked about Pumpkin, and that in her very, very, short years on this earth. No, sorry, she didn't die. The shortest time.
That would have been the most heartbreaking time.
That would have been a very different video.
Very young. And she, yes, she's not the finished product by any means.
No.
But at 13 or 14 or whatever, she is quite sure.
Yeah.
She wants to go back and live in Jamaica. She wants to, live wherever she's living and like make an impact and make a difference. And she's happy with the colour of her skin. She doesn't see it as an issue. And that's the title, Sweetness in the Skin.
It's gorgeous.
That's what it was about, isn't it? It's like going somewhere where everybody looks like you, rather than somewhere where you stand out. And I feel like, as someone who isn't English and white and lives like in the UK, when I was younger and I used to go to Pakistan, I used to feel a bit out of place and stuff, because obviously your cousins, you can't really speak the language, you're not that confident. But now as an adult, when I go back, it's so nice to go somewhere where everybody looks like you. You don't stick out, you're not the odd one out. And you just feel a sense of like belonging that I've never really felt here. But I didn't realise that I never felt it until like way afterwards. So I think that's the kind of thing that she gets as well. So that really came through.
Should we talk about her friends a bit as well, though? Because I did think the point you raised around the kind of colorism class, she has this really awkward experience with one of her school friends.
Oh gosh.
Where her school, like, she's used to going around theirs for a sleepover, and one of her friends says, "No, let's go around yours," and she doesn't know how to say no. Poor Pumpkin in this moment.
Just to set the scene, Pumpkin lives on like the outskirts of town. I'm not sure, like downtown, and it's pretty
halfway
rough.
tree.
Halfway tree. She doesn't think it's rough because that's where she's grown up. That's all she knows. But she takes 3 buses to get into school. She uses public transport. She's faced with a lot of stuff that she kind of is used to, like, you know, being looked at in a funny way,
being squashed
up on the bus. Whilst her, you know, her other friends at school,
they're getting driven.
in AC cars and things like that. So anyway, one girl is like, "Oh, Pumpkin, like we never go back to yours. You know, you've been to mine." So she comes with her on these 3 buses, and even by then the girl is traumatized
because it's her first time on a bus.
First time on a bus, and we're going like literally out into the sticks. She sees the house. She's second instance of shock. Third, she goes in and she's like, OMG. And then she's in the room, and this is when Pumpkin's dad sort of makes her feel
so uncomfortable.
And
cringy.
This is what we were saying earlier, like it's inferred that he could be some kind of deviant. But yeah. So at that point she kind of runs out, uses the phone to call her parents, who in a frenzy, and is like, "You need to pick me up right now." And it was so sad. I felt so bad for Pumpkin.
She did such a good job of like setting that scene. You don't know what went down in that room. You don't know what he said or what he's done.
But he could have just looked at her. And it's enough.
But it was still like the way that she did that scene. It was just enough for you to know that he's just nasty.
And that's Pumpkin's dad. And Pumpkin isn't treated any better.
And ISHI herself was really, really lovely as well. It was so nice to meet her. It was so nice hearing like her take on things, especially the characters, especially when she mentions Boots, who we all really loved, and she told us that it was actually based on a friend of her dad's who was called Shoes. So she kind of gave like a little ode to him by naming this guy Boots, which I thought was really, really cute.
You know who we haven't spoken about is Miss Keane.
Oh yeah,
this is where the Matilda comparison happens there. Because Miss Keane gives you a Miss Honey vibe.
She does. I would say she's a little bit more of a fairy godmother with like real guidance and direction kind of thing. I think what we said when we all read this was that it's exactly the type of love and
she needed
mothering sort of tendency that she needed.
It was
she
fair.
Didn't get
it was
firm.
Else. It was firm but fair. It was the parenting that you would want, rather than someone like imposing their like vision on you.
So it's more of what you need rather than what you want.
Like how would she know? You know, she's young. She's in her formative years. She needs some guidance, and she's also giving her the key to the education that she needs. She needs. She was a great character.
She really looked after her,
and I liked as well how ISHI, the author, put a lot of patois in there. Like, so there was just a lot of passages where they were speaking in their like native voice, and it didn't feel like it shouldn't be there. You know, I know we comment on this, and it just should just be like the done thing. Like,
and also, we don't need subtitles. We don't need footnotes. We don't need any of that.
Like, it's what it is.
It's just part of the fabric of the book, and the like
it gives you the
real
vibe,
voice. It's so vital. Brilliant. I can't imagine a book without it.
So good.
So that was our review and like our discussion on Sweetness of the Skin. Let us know if you've read it and what you thought, and especially let us know if you came to our book club. We know that some of you guys watch. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you at the next one. Bye.